Again, so judging favorably, I titled it The Key to Rosh Hashana and The Key to Life. And we'll see just how fundamentally important this midah or this practice is for all of us. For those who are doing it and for those who are around others, which basically is all of us. And I want to thank the Morashah syllabus for putting together the Mara Makomot, the different sources. Rabbi Pesach Kron, in his classic series, the Magid series, where he tells countless stories, inspirational stories, tells a story about judging favorably, dan lekaf zechut. And I'm going to shy away from using the term giving the benefit of the doubt. And as we work our way along, we'll see why I shy away from that, but I prefer judging favorably. This is a true story. In the Feingold home in Israel, Ashdod, there were mixed emotions. Their oldest daughter had become engaged, yet there was virtually no money to put for the upcoming wedding. And also, as was and is the practice in Israel, is that the two sides chip in to purchase an apartment for the groom and bride so they can get themselves started. He traveled around Israel and the United States to raise money. And his friends and neighbors saw that he was in a very difficult situation. They too began to raise money for the family to help out with the costs. Finally, the night of the wedding arrived, and many of the guests were people who had contributed towards the wedding. They walked into the hotel's largest ballroom, and they were shocked. It was the finest wedding they had ever been to, 7-piece band, course after course after course after course, and they felt used. They were upset. This is what we were raising money for, right? And the rabbis have recently been speaking about not making ostentatious weddings. And here they come and they borrow money, they collect money to make such a lavish wedding. A few days later, Mr. Feingold, who was the father of the bride, who sensed the resentment of his friends, he broached the topic with the rabbi of the community. He explained what had happened. When I first came to discuss the price and fix a date, the wedding hall owner asked me, do you by any chance have a Feingold relatives in Germany? When I told him that Leo Feingold was my late father, tears welled up in his eyes. I am alive today, the caterer said to me, only because of your father. He hid my family and saved us from the Nazis. My whole family owes their lives to your father. And he explained how he always wanted to meet his saviors and pay them back in some small way, but he had lost contact. He insisted that we would just give whatever we had collected and he would take it from there. He would put together the wedding for us. We tried to talk him out of it, but he insisted on showing the gratitude. When we came to the wedding hall, we were as shocked as everyone else, but I couldn't say anything because he had asked that we keep his gift a secret. But at this point, I see the reaction of everyone around me. I need permission to reveal the truth. Please, Rabbi, let everyone know this story. The next morning in shul, Rabbi Weiss told the story to his congregation. Again, they were surprised, but this time they were surprised at themselves, right, that they had jumped to conclusions, right, instead of finding a positive way to view the situation. Right. True story. Let's start with the sources. The Torah tells us, Lo ta'asu avel b'mishpat, lo tisa p'nei da v'lo terdar b'nei gadol, b'tzedek tishpot amitecha. With righteousness you shall judge your fellow. Who is the Torah speaking to over here? Who is the Torah speaking to over here? when it tells us, do not commit a distortion of justice as a judge in court, don't favor the poor, don't honor the great, with righteousness you shall judge your fellow. Who is the Torah addressing over here? Judges. Judges. That's what the Torah shebichtav, that's what the written Torah on its surface is referring to over here. That's whom it is addressing. Along comes the Torah Shebal Peh, the rabbis who see the deeper understanding, who receive the deeper understanding and see the deeper understanding, and they blow this right out of the water. And they say, granted, on the surface it is addressing the judges, but it goes far, much further than that. B'tzedek tishpot amitecha, havidan et chavercha lekaf zechut. You must judge your friend in a favorable manner. So right away, it's not just those who are official judges in their robes and their positions, but it refers to everyone who judges. And that includes every single human being. We'll discuss that a little further also. But we are all judging. Rashi there says, we're not just speaking about the litigants in court. You see your friend doing something, and you can weigh it either in a positive or a negative manner. Bend it, weigh it for merit, and do not suspect him of doing an aveira. So the Chazal, the sage, the Torah Shebal Peh, takes this simple meaning and blows it out of the water, like I said, expands it incredibly. Now, this actually, there's a Sefer Yisod V'Shorosh Avoda, right, which is the Yisod, the foundation and the roots of Avoda, of serving Hashem, where it is a very, very passioned Sefer. And there he links this mitzvah to another mitzvah that perhaps we are a little bit more familiar with. Mitzvot aseh, and this positive command of b'tzedek tishpot amitecha, to judge your friend with righteousness. To judge him favorably in all instances. He tluya umechuberet lemitzvot aseh shel v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. This is connected to that very famous mitzvah of love your neighbor as yourself. V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. Ki davar baruhu. It's very clear, he writes. V'im she'yadin l'chaveru l'kav chova afilu pam achat shuv lo yachol l'kayim b'mitzvot aseh shavat l'reacha kamocha al buria v'shleimuta. If you judge your friend negatively once, then it'll be difficult for you to fully love that person going forward. So therefore, this is an integral part towards judging others favorably. Ravolbi Zatzal in his Alei Shor, he writes that we have to search for the good qualities, right? Someone just sent me this video of a math teacher, and the teacher's writing things on the board, right? 1 times 9 equals 7. 2 times 9 equals 18. 3 times 9 equals 27. 4 times 9 equals 36. And as he's writing, everyone's laughing, because the first thing he wrote was 1 times 9 equals 7, right? Right? The point that he was making is, once we see something, right, we zoom in on the negative, we ignore the positive, and not only that, it doesn't even allow us to see the positive afterwards because we are so fixated on the negative. Rav Olbi says we have to go against that natural tendency. Hadan l'kav zchut rotzeh chaveru yeh zakai umechapes drachim. One who judges others favorably wants his friend to be guiltless and searches for ways. Ketzad lavin ma'asav. How could I understand his actions? Shi'al al tzad kavanah tova. That actually there was good intent. Kol kach yesh estakel ba'ayin tov al kol adam l'ratzot davka l'rot kol masav novim mikor tov. Right, to this extent, we need to look and see how can we find something positive. Mikanchen tzrichim l'chapes etz b'nei adam dafka ma'alot, to search for positive qualities. Hefech miderech ha'olam, right, the opposite of the way of the world. Sha'at ha'megrat ro'on tekef ha'me'amalot ha'mitalmim, right, which we notice the shortcomings and ignore the ma'alot. Now, if a person is constantly doing something that is wrong, right? If a person, right, eats out in non-kosher restaurants, and you see that person in a non-kosher restaurant, in that situation, one doesn't say, oh, I'm sure it was A, B, C, or D. But actually, Rabbi Schwab tells a story that he saw a congregant of his who was not this great Talmid Chacham, not this great tzaddik, but who wouldn't eat a Nathan's hot dog. And he's walking along, and he encountered him eating a Nathan's hot dog. And so even though this person would not be considered a tzaddik in all areas, but in terms of eating non-kosher food, this person would be considered a tzaddik, right? Later, he was informed that the same congregant was hospitalized and went to visit him, and it wasn't from the hot dog, right? He was suffering from a bleeding stomach ulcer, and his doctor had instructed him to eat immediately at the onset of those symptoms, that when it comes, he must do whatever he can do to eat something immediately, to put something into his stomach. You wonder if I ate the Nathan's hot dog. You wonder if that wouldn't be the cause of the bleeding ulcer. That's a completely other issue, right? But so you might have a person who is, not a tzaddik in every respect, but this is something that this person is careful with. And if we see that person going against that, then we have this obligation to see it and to try to use our imagination in a positive way. I once heard a speaker who put it very well. Very often we allow our imagination to run away, meaning there's a meeting going on. You're supposed to meet someone at a certain time, and he's not there. So where does our mind go? Only his time is important. No one else's time is important, right? Our mind is going to run. So let it run in a positive way. Right? Perhaps something came up, perhaps this, perhaps he forgot. Right? I sure forget meetings. I sure forget things. It happens. Maybe he's got a phone call. There's so many ways we could allow our imagination to run in a positive manner. The Rambam in Pirkei Avot says, "Aval im yia adam noda shu tzaddik v'falotava." This person is known to be righteous in these ways. V'nira lo poel shekol yinav mo'odim shu poel ra, and he sees something that looks entirely bad. Ve'en adi yachol achriyo lo tov, and the only way to find a way to view it in a positive manner, el b'dochech gado ve'efsher rachok. It'll take a lot of ingenuity, creativity to come up with a positive. Nevertheless, he should view it in such a manner. And you can't suspect him. The Gemara tells a famous story of Rabbi Akiva, right? And actually, it was before he was Rabbi Akiva. He was just Akiva at the time. And he worked for Elizabeth Horkinus for 3 years. Erev Yom Kippur, he wanted to go home, right? And he asked for payment. He said he has no money. He saw that he did have money, right? He asked for all these different things, and he said, I can't, and he sent him home empty-handed. Later, he paid him in full and asked him, what did you suspect me? And he said, well, when you said you had no cash, I assumed you had no liquid assets, a great deal came your way, and you just had to use your available cash for that. When he asked for pillows and blankets, I thought maybe you had pledged it to the Beit HaMikdash, on and on and on and on. And in fact, that is exactly what happened. Okay. Now, very important. The Mishnah in Pirkei Avot says, Al tadin chavercha ad shetagia limekomo. right? And we'll soon see that we do judge, we almost need to judge at times, but we don't want to judge the person. We want to judge the actions. And this is in general, right? It's not you are or he is or she is, but rather it is what they did. The Bar Tanura, who is the classic commentator on Mishnah, writes, Im ra'ita chaverecha sheba lidei nisayon v'nechshal, al tadineu lechova ad shetegia lidei nisayon kamo v'tinatzel. See someone fails a challenge, don't judge him until you have the same challenge and you overcame it. Right? And I would take that even a step further, because each of us are challenged in different manners. And very often it's easy for me to pass someone else's test. My tests, those are challenging. Someone else's test, easy. What's the big deal? Right? So very important to keep that in mind.
Rabbi?
Yes.
I think the real challenge is we have always so much work to do on ourselves that there's a certain arrogance to thinking that you can
Yes.
lead another.
Yes.
Who the heck am I to be able to lead him in the first place?
Yes, you're making a great point, Ida, but I think also that's what leads us to it. It's a lot easier for me to look at what other people aren't doing than to roll up my sleeves and work on what I myself need to work on. Right? Lashon hara falls into the same, right? Speaking badly about others. It falls into that. It has that same lure, right? I feel a lot better about myself knowing all the things where I am lacking, when I can discuss other people and where they are lacking. It makes me feel a lot better. I talk about all these other people who are amazing. I feel like a nothing. Right? All these amazing people, and look at me. I speak badly about other people. Okay, so if that's what this person could do, you know what? I'm not so terrible. And in a similar vein to what you're saying, Ida, it's a lot easier to look at the faults of others than to get ourselves going and try to work on ourselves. Now, the Torah says we should judge others positively. In a way, it's telling us to judge, and when you judge positively, right? But why is this so? Why don't we just say, don't judge at all, right? Mind your own business. Right? There's a story about Rav Yaakov Yosef Herman. Right? There's a book about him written by his daughter. His daughter was Ruchama Shane, and the title of the book is All for the Boss. He came to the United States, to New York, well before the influx of Jews who came after World War I, and especially after World War II, where the level of religious observance had gone up as a result of those influxes tremendously. And he was fighting a lonely battle. And he was walking home from shul one Shabbos, right? And there were these Jewish proprietors of different stores that were open on Shabbos, and they're all standing outside their stores smoking. So he said to them, we're not supposed to smoke on the Sabbath. So they said to him, Rabbi, there's an expression here in America. The expression is, mind your own business. Mind your own business. See, he said to them, and tell me, if you were having a heart attack and lying on the floor, right, should I mind my own business? Of course not. So if I see your neshama, your soul, is having its own heart attack of sorts, right? So, right, we don't just say mind your own business. Rav Yitzchak Berkovitz writes, right, if we're anyway going to judge, well, let's see here, right? Number one is human nature to draw conclusions. It would be naive to think that we will not instinctively judge the actions of other people. The Torah acknowledges the human mindset and therefore gives us guidelines on how to judge others correctly. So either we're going to be judging, so do it in a positive manner, or the Torah directs us to be active participants in society. That's important. We're not supposed to turn a blind eye to the world around us. One should not just say, I'm not going to get involved. I don't want to know, nor do I care for what he or she did. We have to care. Judaism is about being active members in society, not sticking our heads in the sand. Failure to judge actions of others is passively withdrawing from society. I just read an interesting article I'd like to mention over Shabbos that Billy Joel gave a concert very recently and wore a yellow star. He wore a yellow star as he gave his concert, probably to thousands upon thousands of fans who were there. Billy Joel is Jewish, right? And he didn't talk about it during the show at all. He just did his concert while wearing a yellow star. And afterwards he said that with all that's going on in the world today and this uprising anti-Semitism, he said an expression that really resonated with him is that, I forget who he quoted, the famous expression, all that it takes for evil to flourish is for good men to do nothing.
Right.
Right? And that is also to a degree what he's saying over here. Right? We need to be involved. Now, of course, it needs to be done carefully and judiciously and respectfully and in a way that will bring about positive results. But we can't simply withdraw. As a result, as the Sefer HaChinuch writes, the Sefer HaChinuch goes through all of the 613 mitzvot, and he gives the sources for each of those mitzvot. We did a big chunk of them on Shavuot night this past year. He gives the sources for it and the understandings that we have of them. That we said that one must judge others favorably. This is a way of achieving shalom, peace, reyut, camaraderie, friendship between people. We want to build meaningful, warm communities with a fair justice system. Shalom. And that there should be peace amongst them. By removing the suspicion of one against another. Right? In a similar vein, the Rambam writes in Hilchot Deot, the laws of conduct, Talmid Chacham lo yet soek b'shat diburo. Right? He should not be a Talmid Chacham, a Torah scholar. Right? A person whose actions and personality are shaped by Torah values and wisdom. That's a nice definition of a Talmid Chacham. Right? Should not be shouting when he speaks with people. Rather, he should speak calmly, nicely with everyone. And he should be the one to initiate the greeting to everyone. That people, he'll be pleasant. It'll be pleasant to be around. And judge every person favorably. To speak good about others, and not in a degrading manner. Oev shalom, love peace, rodei shalom, and pursue peace. Kol shel davar. Right? In general, right? That is the type of personality and the area that one should the aura that one should bring about them. I wanted to mention before, but I omitted it. The Mishnah in Pirkei Avot said, "Dan et kol ha'adam l'kaf zechut," right? Which is normally translated as "Dan et kol ha'adam l'kaf zechut," to judge every person in a favorable manner. However, it doesn't say "Havidan et kol adam," every person. It says "Havidan et kol ha'adam," all of the person, in a favorable manner. And in a way, the way I understand that is giving us not just the instruction, but giving us the key as to how to do that. If I'm judging at kol ha'adam, Meaning I need to know the entire person. I need to know what happened last night at home. I need to know how he woke up in the morning. I need to know what emails he's got. I need to know his background. I need to know all that's going on in that person. Only then can I truly have the ability to judge that person. And being that one can't, therefore one needs to shy away from it. Here in source 11, we'll touch upon why I shy away from giving the benefit of the doubt. The Gemara says, "Hadan chaveru lekaf zechut, danin oto lizchut." Right? If a person judges others favorably, then the heavens will judge that person favorably. Right? So this is the concept I'm going to work on now, is that the way we judge others is the way the heavens judge us. Now, I can't say that I should give someone else the benefit of the doubt. If I do that, then the heavens will give me the benefit of the doubt because
You're not God.
Sorry?
You're not God. It's a good thing.
No, but so I should give you the benefit of the doubt. That way God will give me the benefit of the doubt.
Not tit for tat.
More than that.
Oh, Hashem doesn't have a doubt.
God doesn't have any doubts. Right? I have doubts. I don't know why you did this. Might have been a good motive, might have been a bad motive. Right? I can give you the benefit of the doubt. We can't say, God, give me the benefit of the doubt. He has no doubt. He knows exactly what's going on inside this evil plotting head of mine. And he knows exactly what motivated.
He knows no doubt. He knows the ban.
So, that's why the term, the correct, and it doesn't say suffix here. It says dan lekaf zechut, to judge in a favorable manner. And the way that that's explained, Chaim Shmulevitz in a Sichot Musar explains very beautifully. I do a good act, all right? I go and I give $100 to tzedakah. Okay? Let me hear different motives you can attribute to my giving $100 to tzedakah. Glory, meaning people say, Ciner, he's a good guy. Good. Glory. Tax deduction. Okay. Kickback. No one can think of anything positive?
Part of your money.
Sorry?
Part of your obligation.
Obligation. What kind of obligation?
Matter.
My maser, I'm giving my maser, I'm obligated to give.
He felt very blessed and he wanted to pass it on.
I felt very blessed by God. I want to share my blessings with other. How about there's a mitzvah of tzedakah that I'm fulfilling? Right? Right? There's a whole array of motives that can be attributed to my doing that. And the dirty little secret is that there probably is a little bit of all of those mixed in. We never do anything that is purely altruistic, purely good. And also we never do anything that is just 100% satanic evil. Everything we do, we have our spiritual pulls and our lofty aspirations, and we have our pretty petty concerns, and we have the whole spectrum in between. So when I dan lekaf zechut, I'm not necessarily giving the benefit of the doubt. I am choosing to focus on the positive aspects. There are positive aspects and there are negative aspects. I am making a definite choice that I'm going to focus on the positive aspects of this person's actions, of this person. I'm going to focus on the positive aspects.
But that's contrary to an instinctive human nature of wanting to feel smarter, better, superior. You're
that is,
consciously saying,
I agree.
I really don't know.
And the Torah,
and we like to think we know.
Right? And the Torah is all about trying to hone those negative instinctive reactions and learn to have positive ones and take those naturally positive reactions and build them and magnify them. Yes, I'm not saying it's easy, but we focus to see the positive in those around us, and to focus on. Granted, there are other motives that are probably mixed in, but that's not how I am determining the status of this action. And if we do that, the Gemara tells us, then dananoto lizuchut. Then in the heavens, they too will look at our actions, which are this conglomerate of all these different facets and motives and aspects, and they will categorize that in the positive category.
If we do these things more often, doesn't it break it down to go into more of the positive?
Yes, 100%. The more we do it, the easier it becomes. And the Chavetz Chaim goes into this in detail. This is source number 12. How much must a person strengthen himself in this midah? To judge favorably. Ki ayidei midah zo dikav zuchut v'chein lehevech chas v'shalom nakel ha'adam le'alot al atzmo shem tzadik or rasha. This will give. Is the person going to have the name of a tzaddik or the name of a rasha? Incredible, right? Rosh Hashana is coming along. We have the Rishaim, the Sifrei Tzadikim, Sifrei Rishaim. The Chavetz Chaim says this is how it will be determined. Is your status Tzadik or Rasha? Ki aduhu d'chavato shel adam zchuto pliyam lefi rov hamitzvot v'noshi yesh bo. A person's status is by the scale that measures one's actions, good and positive. If God is going to scrutinize our mitzvot, yimsu ruban bali mumin, most of them will be quite blemished. Van mitzvot sheyasharu, and the remaining lu yiyu miyuta de miyuta neged avono sheyesh lo. Right? Halavai, if only it would be right something compared to the other side of the scale. God will act with us in a way of compassion, to search for zchut in all of his actions, in all of his dealings. Then his merits will remain as merits. All this is dependent upon the way that he acted during the course of his lifetime with others. If his way was to judge favorably, they will judge him favorably. And if his way was always to see the negative and to speak about that, so too the ministering angels up above, will speak about him also, as it says in the Medrash. We need to know while we're alive, when, at the moment you are judging your friend, bein letav, bein lamutav, whichever way you're judging him, az b'dibro mamish hu mesader din atzmo. That moment, you are setting up your own judgment. And the Baal Shem Tov takes us even a step further. The Baal Shem Tov says, when a person sees someone doing something lowly, he should try to judge him favorably. To say, oh, his desires overwhelmed him. Or he doesn't know how serious it is. That will save that person also from judgment. Why? And when you see a merit, right, that will also serve for you. Kabalnu. We have a tradition. No decree is ever decreed against the person. Elim kain hu posek ba'atzmo kain. Unless you have judged that against someone else. No judgment will ever be given against a person unless in a similar situation when they were viewing someone else, that's the verdict that they gave to someone else. Marin lo adam shi'asa eza aveira me'ei malachto. Right? At that after 120 years at that great court in the heavens, they will show a person doing something that he did, v'hu posek alav et hadin, and they're going to show your reaction, your judgment, your verdict, and that then will be what you are deciding for yourselves.
How does this relate to judges? You know, we're talking about interpersonal, but if it's one's
A judge needs to see the emet. The judge is not judging the people. The judge is judging, right? Did this person, right? Who owes who the money? Right? The Gemara Ketuvah says that when they leave the courthouse, both litigants should be dancing with joy. Right? The person who they judged in favor of, the coat is his, he has the coat. And the person they judged against should be dancing with joy that this coat that I thought was mine, which would have been stolen property that I was getting benefit from, thank God it's not something that I'm going, right? So the judges need to judge emet, right? And if a person is deserving of lashes, they need to judge that the person had a mistake or even a death penalty. Right? Once in 7 years it would happen, once in 70 years, whatever it is, that's part of the kapara, that's part of the atonement. Right? So they need to judge, but our view of the person is, right? Yes, I ruled against him. He thought the coat was his. The coat's not his. I'm sure he's dancing now that he's not taking away someone else's property.
Rabbi, how does Hashem judge favorably if there's no doubt?
So again, what Chaim Shulevitz says is, where is the focus going to be? There is no action that's 100% good, all white, or all black.
But Hashem has the perspective, the context, all the insight.
He has the exact percentages of each. So there, his actions will mirror ours. If
Can
we
you give an example of how Hashem? Because it sounds to me like Hashem has some latitude as to how he reads the situation.
yes,
And I'm not clear on what, since he has total insight into what the truth is, so then what is there to fudge? Or what is there to...
it's not a matter of fudge. It's a matter of highlight and focus.
But he has perfect perspective.
He has perfect perspective, and that is based upon how we, with our imperfect perspective, what we choose to focus on.
So in other words,
That
he's
is
got the scale.
it is this reciprocal judgment that God chooses to make, even though He knows that my giving the $100 was 6% tax deduction, and 20% mitzvah, and 20% wanting to look good, and 15% I felt bad. Right? He has it, all of that. Now, when I see someone else giving that, I don't know the exact breakdown. I recognize there's a breakdown. I don't know the exact breakdown. But I focus on the positive aspects, and that's how I see it. So the heaven says, if that's how you are judging others, that's how you are viewing the actions of others in a positive way, then we will highlight, we will focus on the positive.
I'm sorry, forgive me. I want to make sure I get it.
So,
Why should this be any different than it is at home?
so it almost, I'm just asking, it almost feels like there is an action, right? And there are all aspects of the action. It looks like one of the aspects is how I judge others. One of the, you see,
One of the factors.
one of the factors. Because Hashem is a perfect judge, right?
Right.
That it should be that on the scale, all these elements, one of the elements is how we judge.
I don't know if I'm seeing exactly that way, Allah. Right? I'm seeing that as more of an overall. In other words, before God is perfectly clear 17.78% was this, 29.42, right? Exactly. That's all laid out. Now, how is it going to be judged? We could say majority rules. Let's see what was what was the most compelling factor, what got the highest percentage, and that's how we're going to judge the action.
But it's
Right? That's what I might have thought. And the Gemara is telling us that that's not the mode that God uses. The mode that God uses is, how do you judge others?
So
But it sounds like, all right, it's like an empirical test, and God's got the score, and now He's going to decide what grade to give you based on the score. He sees the score absolutely. So you got an 83, that's a B plus, but you've judged others very favorably. So He's going to treat you as though you're an A minus instead of a B plus.
No, I'm not looking like that. I'm looking at it, there was factors A, B, C, and D. Right? And B was a larger factor than A. And B is a negative and A is a positive. B was a larger factor than A. Right? But which category does this action go into? Does it go into the A box or does it go into the B box? So, does it go into the positive box? There's a lot of A there. Does it go into the B box? There's even more negative there. Perhaps. So what's going to determine the sorting, right, the categorization of this action is, how do you sort other people's actions? How do you categorize other people's actions? So it's not, he really got an 84, he really got a 47, I'm going to give him 86. No, there are A factors there are B factors there. The determining categorization is not going to be which is bigger, A or B, but how does this person view the actions of others? Does he always focus on the A's or on the B's?
I'm afraid it's still confusing. I won't press it. I don't really
Well, we
understand.
try like a practical exercise on this. Okay, say you have a grocery store and you have a vendor, and the vendor sells you apples or something. Every delivery of apples, he's shorting it, okay? And or he does it with a certain frequency, okay? And okay, that you buy the apples from this vendor, you're going to be shorted, okay? Well, now as the merchant, you have to exercise judgment. How do you deal with that vendor?
Okay.
All right. So, okay, that's the judgment. Okay, the judgment. Okay. Oh, he has a sick daughter, so we're just going to overlook this, or no, this is affecting my bottom line.
So Craig, I would split that apart.
Okay.
In other words, I've got to make my business decision, and if I'm repeatedly getting shortchanged by this person, and I've spoken to him about it, and it hasn't improved, and my business will do better with another vendor, right? So then I will move my business elsewhere, right?
Okay,
How am I
before
judging?
you-
How am I judging that person?
Yeah.
I'm saying he probably has a difficult situation. He probably has this. He probably has that. He's absent-minded. He doesn't do it maliciously. He doesn't do it. I could find many ways to see the positive of that person. It doesn't mean that I can't take my business elsewhere, but that person, he's a good man. He's a fine person.
He asks you, another merchant's asking for a referral for that vendor. Are you going to say, oh yeah, he's a very fine vendor? No, I don't.
What I'd probably say is, he delivers delicious apples. Right? He delivers delicious apples, and you just might want to weigh it upon the delivery. Excellent quality stuff he delivers. Right?
Yeah. Don't you even have the slightest obligation to say, look, I've had this problem with him?
That's what I said. Delicious apples, you might want to weigh it when he delivers. Yeah.
So you would not want a business manager who operates according to these principles when he is evaluating investments. He's not going to go into a business and say, within the bounds of what's realistic, I'm going to assume the positive. Within the bounds of what's realistic. you would obviously not invest your money with that guy because his results are going to be skewed based on.
Again, I think we could make this. We could draw the same line, right? In terms of the person, he's a wonderful guy. Is that with whom I want to invest my money? Probably not.
So the difficulty that I have is we have a value of MS, and we also have a recognition that we have limitations. So it's important. I mean, I was a little surprised not to see a source of the commandment to rebuke your fellow, because that would seem to me to be clear that we must judge. Now, granted, not the person, but the actions. But we're compelled to judge all the time if we're obligated to do that. So it seems to me that Judaism encourages a person to look at the world accurately. And in this area that we're talking about, the way I understand it, and I want to get your confirmation because I need that verified, is that there's a range that is, because we can't have perfect perception, there's a range within which this is realistic. And we should judge people favorably within that range. But we're not asked to go outside of the range of what's realistic. So as an example, I come to shul, let's say, I come to a shul that I've not been to before, and it's a community that I'm familiar with, but I haven't been to this particular shul. And let's assume as a premise that having your cell phone go off unnecessarily in shul is rude. You know, not turning it off is rude. Anybody can make a mistake and forget. Or a person could have a legitimate reason for keeping that bell on. But if you see, you're there for a week, and every day 17 people have their phones go off, it would be a little bit of a stretch to presume that all these people are doctors, or they're just careless every day.
Yes. Or, Mark, in such a situation, though, if there are 17 phones going off, then you might walk away and say, it's interesting. Where I come from, it's considered to be rude to have the phones go off, right? Like in some places, if you have to sneeze, some places might expect you to go out of the room. Other places, no, you can sneeze in your spot, right? So you might make an assumption. Wow, at Beth Jacob, it's considered to be rude, right? To have right. Clearly here, that's not the case. That's not the norm.
That's why let's accept the premise that it's considered rude. But I grant your point. But let's say that we do accept. We can pick another behavior that's considered rude. But the point is, we're not being asked to judge the congregation or the individuals favorably in that sense, because it's unlikely that they all have emergency situations. Maybe I picked a bad example, but there's a question as to whether it really is rude or not. But if picking any example you want, the point is we're not being asked to go to extremes.
If there is a Russia, we discussed this a while ago.
There's no Russia in this story.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody is in the middle. What I'm trying to, the difficulty that I have with applying this, and I'm learning, and you're helping me to put it into some scale, is we're supposed to be committed to accuracy. We also have to recognize that we don't have access to accuracy. But we're never asked to embrace falsehood, or what is likely to be falsehood.
Well, we can in the case of a tzaddik, like this person.
But that's because of the likelihood is he's not doing anything wrong.
You see him eating the Nathan Ham hot dog.
No, he's not doing anything wrong. There's nothing wrong with him eating the Nathan's hot dog.
In retrospect.
But the point is, we are committed to truth, and you see a tzaddik, misbehaving. It's accurate to presume. It's fair to presume that he's got a good basis for it.
Correct.
But for a rank and file person,
How do you know exactly?
Yeah, but that was a rank and file guy, but he was eating a hot dog. That wasn't some tzaddik. It wasn't Moshe Feinstein eating the hot dog.
Well, this is the difficulty that I have. So there seems to be, if it's really unlikely, and we're being asked to believe something
To
that's really
entertain
unlikely,
that possibility.
but that's a fancy way of saying embrace that as reality, or accept it as reality.
As an excellent possibility.
Well, that's
right?
not hard.
In other words, to say, I've heard enough stories, right? Be it the hot dog, be it the wedding hall, be it myriad other stories of situations that looked black and white, but there was so much more going on behind.
I'm sorry, I want to make a distinction. It's not hard to say there's a possibility. It is hard to say, I believe this possibility is probably the truth.
Okay, so within that range, granted there's certain times where it's beyond, right? But within that range, right, one does have A, an obligation, and B, it's to their own best benefit to learn, to train ourselves to focus. But to me, it's a little simpler, right? You like to bring examples that, and I appreciate that, that highlight the issue. But in general, the question is, are we looking around and seeing positive, or are we looking around and seeing negative when it's the same exact picture?
Yeah, in the macro.
Let's do the last few sources that we have. Right? So the Tomer Devora is a beautiful sefer which speaks about how we are meant to mirror the attributes of God. So he writes there, "Kodesh Baruch Hu min naheg im Yisroel v'midah zo v'hisod kvishat havam." The way that God deals with us is known as a midah of limiting the wrongdoing. Kini ha-mitzvot hi kaporachat olta nitza. The mitzvot are like this flower that blossoms and ascends. It's a play on words of the dreams that Yosef had interpreted. And it sprouts and ascends, right, immeasurably. To go before Hashem. Whereas the misdeeds don't have that same ability. If Okay, this is very Kabbalistic things, right? But God takes the mitzvot and binds them together, forms and builds a structure, whereas the averot, the transgressions, they remain separate, disparate, they don't grow together, they don't build up, right? The idea is, right, however we'll understand the Kabbalistic picture that he's painting here, that Hashem makes a big deal out of the good and makes less of a big deal about the bad. And that is a midah that if we would follow that, our lives would be that much better, as would the lives of those around us. He continues, Af midah tzorach adam linaheg ba. So this is a midah that a person also must act. Shelo yichbosh tovet chavero, right? Not to ignore, push aside the good. V'yizkor ra'ato shtigmaleo, and remember the bad that he did. El adar, on the contrary, yichbosh harav yishkechev yaznicheo tiatov esudura tamilu lefanav. Push aside the wrongdoings and focus on the positive. Yizkor ha'tova v'yagbira lo al kol ha'masim shasalo. That should be the focus. That's something that I've often said. A person falls and breaks their ankle, sprains their ankle, right? So the first word is, they try to walk the next morning, they can't walk. God, why me? Right? For the 364 days before, when we woke up and jumped out of bed and walked on our ankles without any discomfort whatsoever, no one said, why me? Why do I deserve to have these good, functioning, strong ankles that don't cause me any pain? But the moment I don't have it, then it is, why God? It's not why God when it's going well.
Right.
It's why God when things are not going the way that I want them to go. That is our tendency, to focus on the negative and to get very accustomed to and take for granted the positive. And with other people's actions also. Our tendency, one's tendency might be to, they once did this to you, right? I can never look at him the same way. Every time I look at that person, I'm reminded of that act, as opposed to all the other good things along the way the person might have done. Not to say that the bad will cancel out the good. Right? Try to appease it, try to deal with it as much as you can. But the good things, Let that always remain there before your eyes. Focus on the positive. Try to push aside the negative. The same way that Hashem is kovesh avonot, that He limits the effects of the aveirot. And lastly, again from the Yisod v'Shorish ha'avoda, right? They give a parable, right? A person is waiting to go into court, right? And as he's waiting, right, this kid runs by and steps on his foot, right? And his father is right behind him, right? And it really hurt, right? And the kid, seems to be a little bit sorry, and the person says, "It's fine, it's fine, it's fine. Don't worry." Right? I was a kid once. I used to run around a lot. It happens, right? He goes into court there, right, for his case, and who's sitting on the bench there? Who's right? It's the father, right? Who's the judge? He's feeling a little bit less nervous, right? I was really good to his kid. Right? So this Yisroel Shor Avoda says as follows: Sheratzon Abori Barach Shimidus Aniguria B'Tmidut Al Banav. Every parent wants their children to be viewed in a positive way. Wants their children to be spoken about in a positive way. The ratzon, the want, the desire of God is that we should always find merit in His children. Even when they're not really following His will. Like compared to a father who has a child not going in a good path. Everyone understands she'im kol zeh ratzona av shilmudu b'nei adam abano zeh tamid seneguria. Person wants people to see the positive in their child. Right? And if you hear someone is blasting that child, always finding fault, that will cause the father to be upset. Certainly the Creator. He wants us to see positive, to judge favorably on His children, and to always judge them constantly judge them in a favorable manner. I'll just end there. The Bedicheva Rebbe was known as the Ohev Yisroel, because he always would find something positive. So there are many stories about him. One of my favorites is a person was smoking on Shabbos. So he said to him, "Do you know that it's Shabbos?" And he says, "I know it's Shabbos." "Do you know that one's not supposed to smoke on Shabbos?" "Yes, Rabbi, I know you're not supposed to smoke on Shabbos." Right? "Do you know that you're smoking?" "Rabbi, yes, I know that I'm smoking." And he looks up to the heavens and he says, "Master of the universe, mi ka'am Yisroel, who are like your children Israel? Look how honest they are." Look at that honesty. Right? Another time, someone came to the shul. The wagon drivers, with their tefillin on, were under the carts. They were greasing the wheels to get ready for work as soon as davening would finish. So someone came and said, "Rebbe, it's disgusting. In the middle of davening, they're greasing their wheels." And he says, "Oh, such amazing people. Even when they grease their wheels, they daven." He was the Ohev Yisroel, right? It's the same exact situation, right? But where is our eye in, right? Where is our eye going to be? Are we going to see positive bracha around the same exact picture? One person sees the proverbial glass half empty, glass half full. How do we see the world? How do we see the situations? How do we see our friends? How do we see our non-friends? How do we view the world around us? That is the key for Rosh Hashana. As Chavetz Chaim said, that will determine if the person is a Rasha or a Tzaddik, how their actions will be categorized, and that is certainly a key towards living and and enjoying the incredible beauty of life that is afforded to us if we will open up our eyes and appreciate that.